So direct instruction of vocabulary is going to be teacher-centered because you should have utilized your knowledge of your students and how best to help them understand, maybe bridge the gap between their prior knowledge, their experiences, and the new word or the new concept that you're trying to teach them. Now, that is when teacher-centered instruction is most readily utilized. But after we give that sort of foundational language instruction, that foundational content instruction, and that modeling guided practice, we definitely want the students to be engaged in this very active learning environment where they are not only practicing the content, whether it be math, whether it be social studies or science, but practicing utilizing the language, that content specific language, like how we talk about science things, how we talk about math things, so that our students, all students, are building their oral language proficiencies all around, more specifically in their content areas, but also our English language learners, our ELLs. This gives them more opportunities to practice with model English speakers. If they're intermediate and they're paired with somebody who's a native English speaker and also speaks Spanish, then they will be, better able to, glean extra words that aren't direct instructed via that exercise, via that interaction, that organic speech interaction. So I want to show you this document. This is the standards document. Every content area and the PPR begin with this document. It's how they're born into a content area that is seeking examination. It is also the document that the test maker sends, not the test maker, that TEA sends to the test maker. So it's what they use to make the exam, to know what the exam should be over and what should be tested. And this one pretty easily translates very nicely into the domains. For instance, standard one, just bring up my thing. Standard one is domain one. Domain one is all of standard one. And I believe it's 33% of the exam. And standard three is domain three. But it doesn't only include standard three, it includes standard one, standard three, and technology applications 1 through 7, the standard. Domain 2, standard 2. I believe it's like about 16%. Domain 3 is 33%. And then domain is standard 4. I point this out to you because standard 1 of this document is tested in 2 of the highest weighted domains. Standard 1 pops up and is the entirety of domain 1, which is 33%. And it also is like a third of domain 3, which, has other things in it as well. So it behooves you to really have a very strong, solid understanding of standard 1, of everything that is, correlated with standard 1, a very deep understanding. So standard 1 is the teacher designing instruction, and we're going to break this apart a little bit and sort of, no, not that. Or teacher, you're designing instruction, and then is appropriate for all students. All students. That's EC students in the grades EC through 12. That's what appropriate for all students. So in the exam, they will tell you, Miss Salceda's third grade class, is starting a new unit on, life full of plants. They give you that age group or that grade level so that you will make the most appropriate choice based on the information that they give you. So it has to reflect understanding of your content, whatever the content is. This is the other very important part. Based on continuous and appropriate assessment. This instruction and assessment, I'm trying to make it go. Instruction and assessment are cyclical. So we don't just assess to give grades, we assess so that we can measure what our students know, what they understood from our lesson. The lesson that we're going to instruct should have learning objectives, and these learning objectives should be able to be measured. And that measurement and that success tells us, do we need to provide more supports in this area for this concept if the students, had difficulty, or particular students? So assessment and instruction, so important. We assess continuously, constantly. We're gathering information, gathering data about our lesson, about our instruction, and how the students mastered or not the learning objectives in order, to better help them to go back to the drawing board, to reteach if need be. Now, the way to read this document for your studying purposes, because I'm going to ask that you guys do a very close reading of Standard 1 for tonight. And then we'll resume back tomorrow at 6:30. But on the left-hand side, you have teacher knowledge standards and what teachers need to know before they enter the classroom. And you have them here indicated by this K. So 1.1K is the first standard, the intellectual, social, physical, emotional, developmental characteristics of students from different age groups. So EC through 12, they're intellectual, social, physical, emotional, developmental characteristics. And there's overarching theories, human growth and development theories that we utilize because we already know, okay, in the Middle Ages, the brain is at this stage of development. Therefore, learning is best achieved via these activities because of the way that they learn, because of the way that they think. So everything you need to know and study, that you should have a good sort of working knowledge where you can understand and talk to people, your friend, your partner, about the different standards. And on the right hand side, it is the application. You applying what you know, taking what you know and applying it in the classroom. So everything that is a correct answer on the exam is going to come from this right-hand column. It is going to be the educator in the scenario doing something from this right-hand column, doing something from the application side. So the first standard 1.1S is that every teacher before they enter the classroom should be able to plan lessons that reflect an understanding of your students' developmental characteristics and needs. Developmental, that means where are they in their growth and development? First graders process and learn information very different than our 10th grade, our sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Our older kids can think abstractly. We can sort of describe verbalize ideas and illustrations, and they might be able to come to a very similar idea in their head because they have the ability to abstract. Their brains are so developed and they have more experiences, more life experiences, learning experiences to add to abstraction, where little kids don't. And so that learning needs to take place via doing and seeing, because they are concrete learners. It is the way that they think. So knowing where they are and how you can help them. Younger kids, very fidgety. You're not going to be able to have them sit down and write a paragraph in the first grade, in kindergarten. First of all, it might be above their literal ability, like academic ability, to do a paragraph at that level, but it also is above their sort of physiological ability to stay seated long enough to write a paragraph, to compose a paragraph. So knowing how to alter or adjust a lesson to better suit the needs, to be more appropriate for the needs of the students, their developmental characteristics and needs. 1.2s, adapting lessons to address students' varied backgrounds, their skills, interests, learning needs, including the needs of English language learners. So not just our special ed, our ELL students, our students' skills, their way of learning. Like maybe they enjoy kinesthetic activities, and a big group of your students this year are kinesthetic learners. So it would behoove the educator to try and find more activities, more assignments, even more assessments that could utilize that preference, that learning preference, or that learning need in order to support learning. Realize the goal is to make sure that we're designing and providing experiences and assessments that are appropriate for them. And so using their interests, using their skills, their strengths in varied ways in order to help them achieve success is very important. So if you have students that are really great at illustrating, or those that are really great with technology, you can give them multiple avenues to show you that they mastered the objective. If the objective is for you to identify the author's use of tone in a poem, identifying the diction words, there's many ways you can have the students give you back that information where they would like it it would be you assessing a particular skill, but giving them, I could say, okay, you can either tell it to me orally, you can write it out in a short paragraph with textual evidence, you can do an illustration of the tone with the words, the diction words in it. So giving them different avenues to prove that they're successful in the same thing, giving them ways to use those same skills in your activity. So just being mindful of that, planning instruction that motivates students. We know that in order to motivate students internally, which is intrinsic motivation, then they have to be interested. And we have to utilize what they're good at and what they're interested in. And some teachers have dug their feet in the ground and set their heels in the ground and said, no, I shouldn't have to tailor these lessons. If you're a math teacher and you see a group of students and they're struggling and you know that they're into cats, you can make your lesson include, word problems having to do with cats. I guarantee you the small change, that buy-in with something that is interesting to them. If you have them do a research paper and it's something that they themselves chose, whether it's from a list that you, prescribed, or whether it's from, a free forming sort of free-for-all choice, allowing them the opportunity to choose gives them that buy-in where they already were interested in it because they chose it. They did this. And that helps also a lot when you're dealing with students and getting them to behave in a certain way. In the beginning of the year, when you are creating, which is standard 2 and domain 2, creating your classroom culture, the classroom climate, you want to make sure that your students feel like they didn't just come in and the warden gave them these rules, that these expectations, first of all, are meaningful and have purpose. But I find that when students are involved in the creation of those expectations, of those rules, that they have that intrinsic buy-in. Like I was there when we were talking about people interrupting other people when they're talking and how that wasn't cool. So the students have that buy-in not to do that. They were there when they discussed it. You talked about the, objectives that you had to achieve in the beginning of the class and what behaviors would, need to be followed through with in order to achieve those objectives. And students will have an intrinsic buy-in if they have agency, if they feel like they are an active agent and an active participant, not just a bystander or someone who comes in and takes a seat and is in for a ride. And I think that that's the biggest difference with the two modes of instruction that I showed you, the teacher-centered and the student-centered, is that there really is more of an active agency, participation in the student-centered learning. And it is through those activities that them practicing deciding, them practicing, being able to question more readily and make mistakes and have discussions and dialogues with peers that are different than them, brings about a full environment. Acknowledging cultural, socioeconomic differences among students when planning instruction. For instance, I oversee a teacher in Houston, and she is from the Valley, and she's the art teacher, and she just figured that during the holiday season, she would do like a lot of Christmas stuff during Christmas. But as she began to get to know her students, and because she didn't live in the area, and this school is like in a neighborhood, like nestled in a neighborhood, the school is predominantly Jewish. So while it's fine to do some Christmas things, it would have been she changed it before the holiday period came, but she made that recognition in her head, acknowledging this cultural difference in what she was used to, and already her planning had, was being preconceived in her head based on what her experiences. And then she realized, oh no, I have to learn a lot of stuff about the Jewish culture and what sort of art projects I could do, because like 85% of the kids come from like even very, very like conservative Jewish households. So she did have to make some adjustments, but recognizing the students that you have and making sure that you make them feel heard, accepted, again, like they are not just these people who are there for a ride, that they can see themselves in the learning environment. I can see myself, my worth, my people, the cultures that I belong to, sort of in the fabric of learning in here. So a way that you might take into consideration the difference between socioeconomics, for instance, whenever teachers give out great projects and they have these wonderful aspirations, but students might not have parents that can afford all of the bells and whistles for the project. And so in those cases, teachers and schools would have to supplement whatever was necessary in order to make it to where the students would be able to participate at the level, but just keeping those things in mind, making sure that there are alternatives. If it is going to be a problem for some students to participate at the level that they would want and are useful and that you want them to, then you have to provide an avenue for them to still be successful. Whether you take donations, I would always go get anything my kids had extra of arts and crafts, I brought it. Like anytime I cleaned out the house, I would bring it to the classroom, magazines to the classroom, anything so that if kids didn't have things during our projects or for their dialectical journals, or even if you ask them like, okay, guys, print out 3 things for your vocabulary, pick 3 pictures for your vocabulary. Not all the kids have access to a printer. So having access to magazines for them to look for visuals in order to use for the vocabulary is you taking into consideration, acknowledging that there might be some sort of disparity socioeconomically and providing that opportunity so that the student can still be successful. Okay, do I have any questions about this document?
No.
Nope.
Okay, excellent. So this one here, this area, if you are going to do a close reading, which I would like for you to do, it's all about students. It's everything having to do with who your students are as humans, the implications of like developmental, areas and the characteristics with planning and assessment, utilizing their varied background, skills, interests, and learning needs, different learning approaches so that you can motivate students to become active, engaged learners. Now, when we looked at that visual in the beginning, one side looked like you had active learners, and I told you the left-hand side, where it was that direct instruction, is sort of stagnant, where the teacher is just sort of downloading the information and the experience and the knowledge. And we want it to be this active, fruitful, meaningful learning experience where students are not only engaging with each other, practicing the language, but practicing utilizing those academic concepts, using their background knowledge, their cultural experiences as resources to be successful, which it can and should be utilized in that way. So that area is just about the students, and you'll see the way that they're read is that they are sort of organized, and then in the bold you have sort of the overarching theme. So this little area is about what are your responsibilities concerning content and pedagogy. And the PPR exam is not an exam that is about the content. So when the question asks you, this social studies teacher, it's not about the social studies. It's about the pedagogy. What instruction, method, strategy for instruction or engagement or activity or support are they using, or assessment here in order, to enhance that learning in that content area. So it's not specifically about it, but these are the things that we are required to do as far as our standards with content and pedagogy. And the most important is that we must use the TEXES to plan instruction. All of our learning objectives should come from the TEXES. That is the law. And that means that whatever's in the IEP needs to very almost exactly replicate the TEXES. Those same learning objectives need to be the same objectives that are in the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. Making sure that you exhibit appropriate knowledge of the subject to promote the learning, awareness of common student misconceptions or likely sources of student error, plan instruction that reflects an understanding of important prerequisite relationships, Plan instruction that makes connections within the discipline and across disciplines. Now, this is one you might be asked about because it is one that we are responsible for doing. And so very often teachers forget to do it, but it is so helpful. I used to do it all the time, not because it was in my standards, but because it made my life easier. And I usually utilized the resources of my history department. And I would ask them, what are you guys doing right now? So if I taught at a junior high and it was seventh grade, I talked to the seventh grade history teachers. It was eighth grade and I did all the way up to, senior, all the way through high school. So depending on what time period and what they were learning, I would choose pieces that were expository, pieces that were poetry, pieces, that were literary, expository texts to look at. So the students came to my class round with prior knowledge from their history teacher to use in my instruction of their reading. It made my life, they're all Miss Elsa, I learned this in my history class, and this is why they were doing this in history. We learned blah, blah, blah. So if they're learning about slavery, then I would choose poems and choose readings from that time period to learn particular ELAR concepts, so that they had knowledge and came to me with resources. Not only does it make them feel important and successful, but it gives them a leg up in the instruction in my class. And then they took what they learned from me and they went and they used it with their teacher and back and forth and back and forth. And so making connections with the other disciplines whenever possible, it's so fruitful, not just for you, but for the students, because you give them all these other days of instruction that become prior knowledge for things that you will introduce to them. So whenever possible, I highly recommend doing that. And if that's something that they ask a teacher, and one of the choices is connecting with the history teacher or connecting with the science teacher, that's always going to be the best case scenario, because we want to, first and foremost, show them how connections can be made across the different content areas, but also to give them prior knowledge and a, the sense of academic satisfaction coming to a lesson already knowing many things from a different perspective that I didn't know. Like, I don't know all the details of what they learn. I just get like the topic and then I leave. They come to me with the details. Oh, this and that. And that must be why they said this and in the letters to whatever. So it's to your benefit whenever possible to overlap learning experiences for the students. Next, you have the selection of instructional goals and objectives. Very important that when you develop your goals and objectives, like the students will be able to identify diction in a piece of writing, diction in a poem, the author's use of diction. So they will be able to identify. And so when I assess them, I have to be able to measure identification of diction. And so even though that's my goal for the day, it doesn't have to be something, my objective, it doesn't have to be something that my objective is measured via like an exam that is an essay or multiple choice. I can find out that my goal was achieved simply by walking around the small, learning groups, listening to the students identify and highlight the diction words in the poem together. I can measure whether or not they can identify diction in a poem. So making sure they're clear, they're relevant, they're meaningful, age appropriate. You wouldn't want for it to be something too difficult. I wouldn't have that goal for a class of first or second graders. I wouldn't have that goal. I might have them, it might be something different, a little less rigorous than that, but of age appropriate. again, we want them always to be able to be assessed. If they cannot be assessed, there are issues, there are problems. And again, with reflecting of the student's age, where are they developmentally? Are they in that middle age? Are they early child? Are they already like pre-adult? What are their prior skills? What skills do they come to be with? What knowledge do they come to be with? What knowledge via their background might they have, their interests, and develop instructional goals and objectives that reflect different types of student learning and skills. So you want for them to, again, give them opportunities to shine, give them opportunities to show you what they know via skills that they already have. If you have some kids that are like little techie geniuses, which I always had those, I would tell them, cool, make me a short movie of the book instead of a book report. Make me a little movie trailer of it. Like it, in my opinion, takes longer than writing the book report. They had to go and they did the music and putting the score and all that stuff. If you can still tell me you read it via your book trailer, I'll take it. I'm trying to assess whether you read the book, not whether you can write an essay. So just giving them opportunities and different types of opportunities to learn and to reflect their learning via their different skills. Oh, sorry. Utilizing resources, utilizing technology, whenever possible, utilizing museums, business members, making connections with the community, especially if you're trying to enhance the cultural competence of your classroom, making connections with like leaders of the cultural community, making whenever possible sort of digital or online field trips possible, because there's so many, you know, you can go to NASA, you can go Anne Frank, you can go Holocaust. There's so many different places that you can visit digitally that it seems sort of silly for teachers not to utilize those resources, and whenever possible include them into the learning experiences, because A, they're available, and B, it adds an added layer to the instruction. Coherent instruction. So varied instructional activities, instructional groupings. So instructional activities, you don't want for them just to be sitting there doing worksheets. You want for them to be doing, you know, group activities where you carefully craft a group of students that have diversity, right? That have a diverse learning needs, diverse skills, diverse language skills, diverse socioeconomics, diverse, just all of it, so that you can give them meaningful group interaction, and it won't be people coming with the same perspective because they know each other and they're all the same. So giving them varied, doing think, pair, shares, doing find somebody who. Does anyone know what a think, pair, share is? Do you guys know what a think, pair, share is?
I've heard about it, but I'm not too.
So think, pair, share is a really great activity, or sort of yeah, it's an activity to utilize, and it's great for many reasons. It gets the students, especially those that are shy and like not really willing to speak out during group discussion, where the teacher's talking to the whole group discussion, so they're not going to give out their response. But maybe you ask 2 questions on class, like, you know, what is the difference between this type of rock and this type of rock? And so the students write down their responses. Then you tell them, okay, guys, think, pair, share with your partner. So they think about the question, they turn to their partner and they share. They're like, okay, well, I think the main differences between these 2 rocks is like, one is more holy or porous, like it absorbs water, and the other one keeps it out, or whatever the case may be. And then the other one says, oh, well, I think it's this and that. And then you come back to the whole group and now you ask everyone, okay, guys, let me have somebody. And so now everybody's practice utilizing the language. And so it is an activity that allows everybody to participate and utilizing, first of all, in answering the question, right? In sort of like even if they got it wrong, they're not going to get like oh, you got it wrong, because it's just with their partner, right? And those shy ones get practice. Our ELL students get practice. Our special ed students get practice utilizing that academic specific language. And then when you get back to that whole group in discussion, you can call out on one of your more shy students, and they will be more likely to participate in that large group discussion because they've already said it once already. They already talked about it, sort of fleshed it out, and are ready to sort of divulge that question. So that's one sort of example of different sort of groupings and activities. You can do pairs, larger groups. But these type of conversation, think, pair, shares, find somebody who, they're a really great way of getting the students to practice language, to practice talking about the content in a way that is sort of not with a lot of risk, like in a low risk scenario or activity. Okay, guys, we're going to end it here for the evening, and we're going to start back up tomorrow. I'd like for you guys to continue looking at this document, especially standard one, because remember, standard one is shows up in a large percentage, or could show up in at least 67%. So that's the sections that it's grouped in.
Stephanie, is this in the link that you sent us? You can't can we get that in the email, or how do we
Oh yes, if you open up the chat and just open it, can you click on that
oh, that? All right, yeah,
click on it,
Yeah.
and let me know if it opened it up for you.
It opened it up, but the only thing I see is like the first slide that it's a teacher-centered learning and student-centered learning, but I don't see the other, unless I have to sign in.
No, because it
what
does
I-
that sometimes. Let me do it again.
that's
Let me
what
do
I
it again.
see as well.
Okay, let me do it again. It's a good thing you checked. Okay. And I usually have people check, but okay, try this one and then save it in your browser.
See.
Okay, yes, I see it.
Excellent. And so if you'll look at this document here, everything from standard one, Piaget's theory, everything about human growth and development, it's all here. Kohlberg's theory, Erickson's theory. So this is a really good review sheet for standard one, the first part.
So which one is this one?
That one is the PPR quick sheet.
Let me.
And I have a question, because since you were talking a little bit about grouping, I don't know if it's going to be a little bit of a lengthy explanation, but when I took the practice exam for the PPR, I noticed that there was a lot of questions like regarding grouping and as far as like ELL students, because I don't know, I kind of get confused between grouping ELL students with native language, because I've read or I've seen in like material that it could not be beneficial because they can get discouraged because they can't keep up with the native language speakers, but then it's better because they learn native
Yes,
language.
and so you don't want to put like one intermediate with a big group of native English speakers, you know? And so if you're going to have some intermediates, you want them to have some advanced high, maybe one native English speaker in there in the mix with the ELs. You wouldn't put beginners in a group with obviously English speakers because they would for sure get discouraged. But
Yes.
especially whenever possible, and it's easier for us with Spanish to group students who speak native English and the other language as well, which is helpful. But so you want to get a diverse, and you do want to have at least one native English speaker in there so they can be the model English speaker for the group.
Okay. But it's still like more beneficial to have them in a group like diverse versus like all English language learners.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, I saw a lot of questions like that.
Yeah, and we'll go over this one tomorrow. This one here, the ELPS instructional tool. This one has a lot of really, really good information on ELLs, stuff that you can do to support your ELLs in the class, in your groupings.
Oh, okay. So tomorrow at 6, it's like 6:30 to 7-ish.
Yes, that's correct. Tomorrow,
Okay.
let's start at 7. We'll do 7 to 8 tomorrow.
Okay.
All right.
All right, y'all have a good evening.
All right.
Yes, thank
too.
you for your time, Stephanie.
Yes, of course. Y'all have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.